The idea with this engine swap is that I'm going to have a front drive shaft to each of the front wheels, but it's in a different location than the Subaru drive shaft. Now, Subaru puts the front axle behind the bottom of the front control arm. So the Subaru axle comes in back here and the steering comes in the front. So what I'm going to do is move it the other way to where the steering is in the back and the axle comes in the front. What I'm going to have to do is remake the support where the lower control arm mounts are. So it'll still mount in the same location, but this piece between the control arm and the frame of the car is going to be removed, and the frame will come out horizontal and then attach up to the front cross member. So it is going to use all the original mounts. That way, the idea is that if this works and it's good, I will build this subframe, a tubular version of this subframe, and it will be available for purchase, so anybody else that wants to do this can do it. So the trick here is that when you move the steering from the front of the wheel to the back of the wheel, or from the front of the knuckle to the back of the knuckle, if you use the same steering rack, it will actually turn the wheels the wrong way. So I am going to use a different rack. It is likely going to be a EG or EK Civic power rack, and maybe, you know, same as DC Integra stuff. I used one of those on the wide body 83 Civic by putting in the Integra front frame and subframe and cross members and everything. And it's really easy. It mounts right close to the firewall, and the mounts are vertical rather than horizontal like on the Subaru rack. And it's designed to go behind the knuckle, not in front, so when you turn the wheel left, you get left, versus this one where the rack is in front, so if I just move everything to the back, I'd get the reverse effect. You know, they make like planetary boxes that'll change the direction of one shaft for industrial applications like motors and things, for production lines. But I'm going to try to use as much Subaru stuff as I can. I might use a 240SX rack. It's the right size, but the right width, and it uses the same tie rod end threads as Subaru, but it's bigger, and I don't know if I'll have enough clearance. So the Honda rack looks like it's going to be the thing. So I'm doing a test fit of the driver's side knuckle on the passenger side. So far as I know, because the knuckle is essentially symmetrical, minus the steering part, everything on the center line should line up right. That way the suspension geometry isn't affected. We'll see how it works though. So the ball joints are rusted slightly. I'm not going to use these ball joints, but for this test fit and the fab, I can use them. I just have to sand them, file them down a little bit to where everything will go where it's supposed to go. You know, someone commented in my last video that I was struggling to get the motor out, and it's kind of accurate. You know, I haven't taken a Subaru apart in a long time. I forgot where some of the things are. And I'm getting old. And when you get old, things that you used to be able to do all day takes all day to do. It's a funny phrase, but it's true. So let's see. This is the driver's side knuckle. We're going to put it on the passenger side. Maybe it needs some lube. So the knuckle does fit on backwards. Looks like I'll probably have to get an offset ball joint or tie rod end, although a tie rod end with a spherical rod that's adjustable height, like they have in the bump steer kits was probably going to be the solution, but those are, I'm sure I can find one off the shelf that'll fit. Because as it is now, it looks like the steering rack would have to be up higher, or the ball joint itself would need an offset because the back of the control arm is in the way. Here's the view from here. You can see the tie rod end. Get these plugs out of the way. So the tie rod end does have enough clearance if I put the rack slightly forward of the tie rod, so I can go with an offset tie rod end that'll locate the tie rod sleeve maybe ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch forward. They make those for hot rods. But it looks like it's going to work. Now, one thing about the Subaru factory tie rod is it also is not directly parallel to the rack. It does come in slightly at an angle, you know, from the angled backwards to, so there it's inherent, or it appears that it would be inherent that Subaru would also have some bump steer in the front, because the tie rod is not exactly straight. It does come back at a slight angle. So I'm gonna grab the brake caliper and stick it on and see if everything fits like I think it should. So the knuckles are swapped left to right. I have put in the remainder of the front CV axle, and here is the test. So straight ahead with about a 1/4 inch clearance, I still have almost full travel. It's about 3 degrees less than it was with the CV axle behind the suspension upright, or suspension arm bracket. And in this direction, it still has full angle. What that means, having full outer movement and slightly less inner movement, is that overall the travel is maybe 3 degrees less, but the Ackerman will actually be slightly better with the rack positioned on the back. If you guys want an explanation of Ackerman angle, go to Engineering Explained. He can explain it better than I can. But it will slightly change the Ackerman, but it'll be very minimal because the distance from the hub center line to the tie rod is the same. So just the change in overall travel will adjust it slightly. But it fits. When I modify this piece right here, it'll have slightly less angle. The new center line of my new front differential is about 13.5 inches from the firewall, and this is right at about 14 center line, so I'm going to get a little bit less angle, so I'll have even more angle. But if you see, when I max out the CV joint against that arm there, I'm still at the right place, and that's all the way locked on the CV axle. See? So it's so close that, I mean, it could take just millimeters to clear with the axle in front. So, and of course this other way, full travel. And the CV axle is not fully locked out with the knuckle as far out to the right as it can go. So it's going to work.